Listen up, get ready, I'm not gonna take no more. There's a revolution, a revelation going on in my soul. Buckle up, get ready, we're not gonna sit back.
Okay, welcome all you sisters and brothers, all you citizens of the world. It's Michael James and time for another Live from the Heartland show. Today, I'm going to have two of my favorite guests. They're also producers and sometimes hosts. That'll be Katy Hogan and Thom Clark. And before we get to the two of them, I'd like to just let everyone know that Val Kilmer passed away. Some of you remember him from Batman and other movies. I remember him from Thunderheart, which was kind of based on the takeover by the American Indian movement at Wounded Knee. And I'd like to share also that a recent guest on our show, Del Marie Cobb, she has a PR firm and works with progressive candidates, and her company just turned 35 years old. And you can find that interview if you go to the youtube.com/Heartland Media site. One good thing for me, two good things for me. One, a lot of you people are wondering when the book about the Heartland Cafe is coming out. And I just want to say that Katy Hogan and I are working on it. We're just about done with that first draft, and we'll be sending it around to some interested parties. Closer to home and right away, I have just completed a new book called En la Frontera, El Paso y Juarez, Basketball in the Barrio. And it's a book of about 75 pages of photographs, and it'll be off the presses soon. And hopefully those of you who want to help support this show will get a copy when we do our spring fundraiser, which is coming up. With all that said, let's turn to our two guests, and I'm really glad to have them here with me. It used to be a time when all three of us would drive downtown. We'd work out a script beforehand. We'd go over things. Now it's I get them when I can, and I'm really glad to have them today. And let's start off with Katy Hogan, who I'm sure has something really wonderful to talk about. Hi, Katy.
Yeah, good morning, Michael. Good morning, Tom. Today is the day after Wisconsin voters stood up and gave the middle finger salute to Melon Fusk. I couldn't be happier. There's nobody I wanted to give a bad day to than that particular character. But the best part about it is they've got an actual qualified, decent human being going to the Supreme Court, which is more than I can say for all the members of the cabinet that were just appointed and approved, and various department heads. So it's really nice to have that affirmed by those smart Wisconsin voters who showed up in record numbers, by the way, and in an off-time election. As you know, and your listeners probably know if they're regular, we worked again with Operation Swing State, along with partners, Indivisible, Movement, Left, I forget all the people, lots of Democratic parties, offices from the North Side we were working with. And we sent a lot of people up every single weekend and knocked many, many doors. And so there was, and we actually, last weekend, we actually met the judge. She kicked off the launch in Milwaukee, which was very exciting for the about 200 canvassers that were gathered waiting to hear her speak. So that was great. And she's wonderful.
Susan Crawford is the name, right?
Susan Crawford. Yes. Sorry, I didn't mention it. You're right to remind me of that instead of mentioning the ignoramus's name first, even if I mixed it up a little bit. And people are, also were reacting with disappointment to the Florida races. But I just have to say, those two races were always going to be a big reach. Those two districts, very, very red. And the good news is those voters, too, totally encroached on the Trump numbers by 10 or more percent. Very significant. So it was a great effort, and it'll set the stage for future efforts by those same voters. And And, I think between all the action in the street when we started last week here in Rogers Park, I think Tom's going to talk about that a little bit. But we call it the Visibility Brigade, and we're encouraging everybody to do that. So I'll step off of that.
I'll just say congratulations, Katie, and all the other folks who worked so hard in this in Wisconsin. I think the results, even in Florida, show the emperor has no clothes. He did not bring people along at all, and I think the Muscovite is really beginning to burn bridges that they're going to have trouble rebuilding. I've hoped since November that they would overplay their hand so quickly that there would be a reaction, and maybe what I'm taking some solace out of yesterday's results is that maybe that has started now. And we'll see if we can get more judges to rule more quickly, although I don't know that any of them have an army to enforce their rulings. But if there's a preponderance of decisions against the regime, I think we may be getting someplace. We can't afford to wait for midterms elections. We got to be making more inroads before then. And I think the Wisconsin results yesterday are just really exciting, along with the attention that Cory Booker got with his marathon speech in the Senate. I would hope that people will take to heart his training for this. He stopped eating last Friday and stopped drinking on Sunday so that he would enter into this dehydrated to begin with. For those people wondering, how do you go to the bathroom during a 24-hour speech? And my answer to that is it depends. But
I was wondering if he had a tube down his leg.
I think it was a very exciting Mr. Smith goes to Washington kind of moment, and we ought to be seeing it every friggin' week.
I want to just say one thing about Musk. The Elon Musk's backlash.
Must we?
I'm going to do it. The backlash turns into global sales slump for Tesla. And our friend Mike Klonsky, who does Hitting Left with the Klonsky brothers, or whatever he's calling it these days, he said Elon Musk has announced plans to exit Dodge in May, claiming that the most of the damage required to achieve his $1 trillion goal will be done by then. He goes on to say that during his brief tenure, Musk's personal wealth has surged dramatically, reportedly increasing by 82% to a staggering $420 billion, despite Tesla's stock taking a hit. This stark contrast between his growing fortune and the struggle of those affected by his cuts has led to mass protests, with many questioning the fairness, equity, and legality of the process. But his enormous wealth and his power to buy so many elected officials have enabled him to skate accountability. Let's hope that's coming to an end.
Well, they did in Wisconsin yesterday, big time.
Yeah, they did. They really socked it to him. It was a great victory. I'm glad we did it. Do either of you want to comment on Myanmar and Thailand and the earthquake over there and the response to it? I mean, it's pretty tragic watching it on the TV.
What's tragic is the inability of the United States of America to respond to a humanitarian crisis, though China showed up right away. They're in the news. Their crews are helping out. And once again, the wannabe emperor has no coattails, no clothes, nothing to show for this. I mean, USAID can't respond because it's been decimated. And, that's normally how we would do soft diplomacy. And, this clown car government is not interested in that.
You got anything, Katie? I know you've been watching the TV.
Yeah, I mean, we all saw, if we watched it on NewsHour a couple nights ago, a former, I think he was actually in the first Trump administration, describing the difference it makes on the ground, specifically in places like Myanmar, where no one can get to. The Chinese can because they're right next door. And, all of us laymen on the ground are pretty clear that everywhere we create a void, China is stepping in. The multifaceted U.S. aid, which covered everything from helping stop Ebola virus from spreading from its starting place to the disaster relief to kind of regularly being counted on to feed a whole slew of hungry people. You know, where are we? We are not there. And I don't know. Maybe, I mean, we all know Trump is not a patriot and a tool of the Soviet, of Putin. But is he also a tool for China? He's just a tool. That's right.
Yeah, we'll call him a tool. And I know that not only was China there in big time, so was Russia and a number of other places, people from India around the world. It's really quite a situation. I contacted two former Rogers Park friends, Bill Page, who lives in Thailand, and Jeffrey Orr, who also lives in Thailand, to see how they were doing.
What did they say?
They're both okay. And what Jeffrey said, I couldn't find what Bill said, but he said all good in the south of Thailand. Friends in Bangkok are shook up, but everything, they seem to be okay. The only building that collapsed was the government state audit department that was being built by a joint venture with Chinese State Railway Company. And apparently the rebar in that construction was substandard and led to the building coming down. It says typical corruption over here, and there are dozens of dead workers because of it. And then he went on to say he's going to Da Nang to see an old friend, hopes all well back here in the 49th Ward. Speaking of the 49th Ward, Thom, you have a wonderful wife who is real active in Third Act, and you may have been dragged into it too by your friends and neighbors, but it's quite an outfit, and it, you know, we did a lot of work, Katy going up to Wisconsin, a lot of other people we know. There's a lot more work to be done, as Thom was pointing out. So why don't you tell us a little bit about Third Act and what's on their agenda?
Third Act is a national organization of elders trying to preserve the environment for our grandkids. We are activists. We are also, we hope influencers want to use our talents and our experience to try to make a difference. The Illinois chapter of Third Act has grown to over 300 volunteers over just the last couple of years. And there are, in fact, a lot of Rogers Park folks in the leadership. thirdact.org/Illinois is the best way for you to find out more. Their current activity is trying to get the state pension fund to divest of big oil investments. The less we take out of the ground, the more likely it is that we will stop affecting our atmosphere as much as we are, which is causing all the global climate crises that we're looking at. There's a lobby day in Springfield in May. I believe it's on the 21st. Third Act will be there in a big way. But they're also planning a Sunday in September 20th and 21st, to celebrate what we're ultimately trying to get at, which is cheap energy that doesn't destroy the earth. And it's a very potent organization, gaining more allies every day. thirdact.org/Illinois. You can find out more. I also want to plug couple of other local activities. Katy was involved with organizing neighbors to have a presence during Friday morning rush hour at Greenleaf and Sheridan. And on the west part of the ward, we are starting that Thursday evening rush hour at Pratt and Ridge.
When we started it last week, we started it with a sign making night at the local political headquarters here on Morse Avenue, which has been such a gift of a place to organize from. I want to say thank you to Maria and thank you to Kelly Cassidy for allowing us to over and over again utilize that office. Last night on my own, I went to roll white paint on Maria's former yard signs because they have a date on them. She can't use them again. And so they're sitting there, 10 of them on 2 tables. And tonight, hopefully, they'll be dry enough for people to make their new signs. The problem is signs are not big enough to actually express all of the variety of outrage that we feel. I mean, you have to pick one or two at the most, if you want to do both sides of the sign. You, Michael, and Paige and I went downtown on the L for the first Federal Plaza gathering I don't know, was it a month ago? And I made a sign on the L. I just grabbed a piece of cardboard and went out and I made a sign on the L that was, just this big. And it said, "The Emperor has no clothes." And the other side of it said, "And it's really not a good look." Which was wonderful because we have to maintain our joy. Yeah. We have to use it as a defense against the despair that we can fall into. I mean, just this week, a couple of days ago, I actually I had a morning where I could not cry. And that was the first time I had just let it drop. And there was no additional, everything we've been reading for, since January 20th has been despairing and awful and angering, but some reason it just hit me that day. And Thom, you and I shared this. Did you have that experience as well?
Yes, it hit me yesterday, and I know exactly why, because of Cory, in part. I paid a lot more attention to the news yesterday than I have, and it weighed down on me really heavy. I think it's really important for all of us to maintain our sanity and good energy while we're being inundated every hour with another nasty headline. We have to pick our moments, as I've been saying since the election. We need to rest, listen, discern, collaborate, and make good trouble to the extent we're able, because that's how we're going to, I think, stay alive this next period of time. And to the extent we can do it in a joyful way, some of my housemates celebrated Trans Day out in Oak Park. And how do they do it? Dancing down the street with music and off at Scoville Park. They basically were all around downtown Oak Park, and it was a joyful parade, which was the whole point. And I think that's the kind of energy we need to bring into this really downward spiral our democracy is now in.
I'd like to share a little bit of information. There would be an opportunity for people who are concerned about all these issues to join I understand there's going to be a big demonstration downtown on Saturday the 5th, so if you're listening to the show either on the radio or streamed on Friday morning or Saturday morning, you can get downtown if you so desire. And it's going to be in Daley Plaza, and I bet there's going to be a big turnout. I'm not sure of the weather. We're getting big rainstorms right now. They talk about snow, but I bet the weather is good enough for a number of people to gather there.
Hey, the Trans March on Sunday, which was the first of its kind, and such a joyful, colorful, beautiful community gathering. And our state rep, Kelly Cassidy, was on the dais. She gave a fiery speech. And if they could march through the pouring downpour that they did, I think that the many hundrds of thousands of people, and Saturday, is a national day of demonstration. It's going to be from sea to shining sea, and lots of people everywhere. It should very much lift people's spirits to see one another caring about the democracy again.
And let me just mention that if for some reason those of you on the north side can't make it downtown, you can go to Fountain Square in Evanston also on Saturday to participate in what is a national day of protest on April 5th.
Right.
All right. So we have a few minutes left, my fellow sometimes hosts and producers of this show. And I have a list of things that I'm going to fire it off. And you can, if any.
Can you assign them so we don't speak at the same time?
Yeah, well, just what they are. I'm a little bit interested in how Mayor Brandon Johnson is doing. I know he went to D.C. and had to talk in front of these Republican and Democrat Congress people. There's also PBS got called in before the House. We have a situation with just drastic behavior on the part of the Trump regime in deporting people. We have a measles epidemic.
Wait,
on
stop
the
right
earth.
there. Stop
Okay,
right there.
which one do
Because
you want, Kate?
I'm going to take the deportation because
Go.
it's terrible. It's what we used to call extraordinary rendition. It's if they keep it up, you can kiss the Bill of Rights goodbye. Everyone has to make big noise about this every day. They're stealing people, and I don't care if they are quote unquote guilty in the eyes of ICE. There has to be due process. That's kind of the main thing in this country. One of the main things. And if we give that up without a holler, well, we deserve what we get. We need to holler about that stuff, particularly when they're willy-nilly just taking people off the street, half of whom have done nothing. Maybe they've demonstrated against something that the felon in office is for or is against. Maybe they're going against his line. That doesn't work that way in America. Okay, I just wanted you to stop the fire hose, Michael. It was getting a bit
Just
much.
giving you guys an opportunity to choose
Right.
your topic.
Except you didn't. Brandon was your first point, and Brandon got a contract with the school, and we'll see how they're going to pay for it. But when he ran for the office, I wasn't sure why he wanted the job, and I think he's learned why some of us were concerned about him taking that job on. It's a tough situation. He inherited, but I don't think he's handled it well. We'll see how things turn out. There are already people lining up to run against him. But I think, we're looking at, with all the stuff that's happening on the federal level, the state, the county, and the city are going to be really scrambling to try to pay their bills.
Yeah.
Particularly on contracts that were already in place that they're not getting reimbursed for. The layoffs at Health and Human Services will make this a deadlier, sicker nation than we could probably ever imagine. And it could happen really quickly given the spread of the measles epidemic in Western Texas, because the clown car guys in charge don't believe in vaccines to protect people. So I guess we're all just going to get measles again.
One thing I didn't get to ask, but I want to put it on our agenda because it'll be a topic we're going to talk about, is the ongoing Israeli-American war against the people in Gaza. And
the West Bank.
And I think it's going to have serious ramifications for going forward, because it divides the world, and it certainly has divided people at home. And I think it will continue to do that unless we get a grip on it and the Democrats are able to really counter some of the most negative things going on in the name of this country or the support by us. I think that we have to figure out a way to have this a topic that can be talked about in a decent and fair way.
Well, maybe Netanyahu, not unlike 47, is a ruler sitting in office who is also a criminal. And the kind of things that are being said about how October 7th was actually allowed to happen, all the way up to people who have been dehoused, dehumanized, starved, raped, and pillaged, are now marching in their bombed into the Stone Age surroundings in Gaza and the West Bank, saying no to Hamas. Where is mainstream media on this stuff? I
have to go to Al Jazeera in order to find out what's going on in the Middle East. I mean, I think we're so distracted by the domestic mess the regime is doing that we're not paying as much attention as we should be to international things. And, the Palestinians just have not risen up very high on people's consciousness to be concerned about. But, and obviously the current regime will allow the leadership of Israel to do whatever it wants to. I'm very nervous about a broader scale breakout of war, unless ironically Egypt, Saudi Arabia, Jordan end up having more influence in trying to forge a better situation than we see right there.
Thom, you mentioned Al Jazeera. I don't know if all of our listeners or viewers know about Al Jazeera, but if you go to online, you can get the paper. There's not a charge right now, and they have really great news. And also, I watch a lot of Al Jazeera on the TV these days. We're running out of time. I'll give you each about 15 seconds if you have something else you want to say to encourage the world. There we go. You're holding up a picture of I am stealing from you, and it's some guy that's used to be from South Africa. He came here, dropped out of school.
He's a Nazi. He's a Nazi.
He's a Nazi. Okay. Thom, you got any parting words?
I'd like to move beyond concentrating on the Nazi and trying to do whatever we can locally to keep people energized, focused, collaborative, as well as helping our neighbors stave off any assaults by the government.
That's right.
All right. I really love seeing you two on a rainy morning here in the 49th Ward. And I'll have you back on the show before you know it. Everybody else, stay tuned. We've got another guest coming on, a fellow named Jefferson Mock, who I met recently, not too long ago. And he's got me involved in a project in Uptown. And we're just going to pump him for some information. Be right back with more Live from the Heartland here on the left end of your dial, or however
Thank you, Michael.
Show.